Clarifications, Mr. Seah Kian Peng.
Madam Chair, I have three clarifications to ask. The first is to Minister Masagos. First, I thank him for reiterating the importance of strengthening family resilience and his articulation of what family means. Recently, Minister Shanmugam made a statement on 377A and the changing societal attitudes towards marriage and family. So my first clarification to Minister is, could he give us Ministry's position on this? My second clarification relates to single mothers, and this is addressed to MOS Xueling. I know she is very passionate and very empathetic to the stresses that single mothers face. I would just like to ask her, I think she has explained some of the things that have been done for them. I would like to ask her, whether she could further elaborate on what single mothers could expect, the areas that the ministry is looking at. And my third and final clarification is relating to counselling. Either Minister Desmond Lee or Pausek Eric Chua could address this. I think we all know the importance of going upstream and the good work and the good results that Comlink has achieved so far. Noted that it's already rolled out to 10 and there's 11, I think, 11 towns, and that's 10 more will be rolled out soon. So my question is, if resource is not a constraint, and seeing the good results that have come out so far, how can we? I'm sure all the 10 towns are looking forward to this. How can we roll this out even faster? And if this could be shared with the especially the 10 towns that are expecting this. What can we do to accelerate this so that we can really make a difference to the families that will benefit from this? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Minister Masagos.
Thank you to our member, Mr. Seah Kian Peng, for his three questions to open up the clarification to our responses to our members' cards. As Minister for Home Affairs and Law, Mr. Shanmugam has shared, the government recognizes that Section 377A of the Penal Code is a divisive issue. The court has acknowledged that the government's current approach on this matter avoids driving an even deeper wedge in our society. Our society can be described as largely traditional. However, we now have a wider range of views and attitudes where families and marriage are concerned. For example, you take attitude towards mixed marriages. More than 30 years ago, 1 in 10 of all marriages were from different ethnic group, inter-ethnic group. Today, it's doubled, almost 1 in 5. And you see this more common, in fact, among ourselves and among members here, very acceptable to our society. We're therefore not surprised that we are seeing an increasing acceptance of LGBT persons socially amongst Singaporeans. In fact, an IPS survey in 2019 showed, while small, 11.4% of the respondents felt that sexual relations between two same-sex adults were not wrong at all. Because this is still double the figure in 2013, which is about 5.6%. But while societal attitudes are gradually shifting, the majority value and wish to preserve the traditional family, that of a man and a woman marrying and raising a child or children in a stable family unit. This was also reflected in statements consequent to Minister Shanmugam's statement in Parliament recently by various parties. Family continues to be the bedrock of our society and contributes to social stability, allows children to strive. We'll uphold the traditional family in our government policies and laws, reflecting our societal norms and values. This includes marriage, parenthood, adoption, fertility treatment even, housing, and inheritance, among others. Now, at the same time, we must continue to ensure that LGBT persons are protected from violence, harassment, and abuse. For instance, POHA, the Protection from Harassment Act, contains a range of both civil and criminal measures that can protect all victims and meant to protect all victims against offenses involving harassment and abuse. From MSF, through public education campaigns such as Break the Silence, to raise awareness and encourage victims, regardless of nationality, marital status, gender, race, religion, or even sexual orientation, to seek help early. We also urge that for the public to step forward to report violence and abuse where LGBT cases may be involved. Concerns surrounding Section 377A and its implication will still have the potential to polarize society. It's an issue, it involves deeply held beliefs and values, and divergent societal views and goals. We thank the religious, sectoral, civil society, and LGBT groups that have shown support for civil dialogue and respect for the values of others, even when different from their own. We'll continue to adopt the approach of civil dialogue, working with all, involving all stakeholders, as we chart our own unique Singapore way forward, without creating sudden shifts and deep division in our society.
MOS Xueling.
I thank the member, Mr. Seah Kian Peng, for his clarification. I have said this before, and my views have not changed, that I respect single parents, single unwed parents, for the love and care that they have for their children. And I fully recognize that it is not easy to bring up children, even more so single-handedly. And that is why in the Alliance for Action to strengthen marriages and family relationships, we have a dedicated focal area on single parents. So specifically for the areas which we are following up on in our dialogues and engagement sessions with single unwed parents, a few areas, a few pinpoints have been highlighted to us. Firstly, on childminding. And that is why in my main response earlier, I had talked about the childminding service pilot that the MSF will be partnering a social service agency on to provide childminding service beyond a regular childcare center's operating hours. And this is important because we know that when we solve childminding issues and concerns of single parents, they then have the capacity and the time and the energies to look into employment. So the second area, when it comes to employment support, we're having discussions with NTUC, with community partners, to see what are the areas we can assist our single unwed parents in, be it in training or finding local opportunities for these single parents to be able to re-enter the workforce and get on a sustainable path with their children. The third pinpoint that has been highlighted to us has been around housing. And in this particular area, I've had the opportunity to work with member Mr. Louis Ng for many years when we've discussed this in Parliament and in my time at the Ministry of National Development. Members will recall that MOS Faisal recently in Parliament had shared that generally single unwed parents can receive the outcome of their rental flat application within 3 weeks of submitting all required information, although additional time may be required for complex cases. So these 3 areas, childminding, employment support, housing, have been brought up as pain points, and we are actively looking at how we can solve these pain points for our single unwed parents. I also wanted to highlight that after the focus group discussion that myself and my team at MSF had with the single parents, the single unwed parents, and members like Mr. Louis Ng and other MPs had joined me for that session as well, that my team had followed up individually with the single unwed parents to clarify any outstanding issues that they had raised, which sometimes also arises out of misunderstandings or miscommunications of government policies in their interactions with government agencies. Thank you.
On Comlink, okay. Palsec, Eric Chua.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank the member for his clarification on Comlink, and I also want to thank the member for attributing the adjective success with Comlink at this point. But I do think it's a little bit premature in that sense. We started Comlink with 4 sites in 2019, Jalan Kukup, Boon Lay, Kembangan, Chai Chee, as well as, I believe it is Marsiling. So 4 sites, we have piloted that. We thought the model worked well, and then that's why we are going in a 2-phase approach to the 11 as well as 10 Comlink towns this year. 11 last year, 10 this year. So I think what we are trying to achieve through Comlink is our promise in our social compact, and that is to help our low-income families, and this is really going for the long haul. Because if you look at the broad objectives of stability, self-reliance, and social mobility we're talking about, most particularly on social mobility, we are talking about a long-term kind of outcomes. So through Comlink, we are tracking various outcomes. We are tracking various outcomes, I would say indicators, not just in terms of immediate process indicators, but also perception, as well as finally, and most importantly, in my own opinion, outcome indicators. Where do the families end up? And I think I want to stress the fact that actually time might not be of the essence, or speed might not be of the essence in this scenario, because we are talking about very customized, very bespoke approach to going to each family, understanding them, both their challenges that they face, as well as the aspirations and dreams that they have, and then helping them to take away or remove or sidestep some of these challenges, while at the same time working towards their longer-term goals, their aspirations. So I don't think it is something that can be achieved overnight. We can't get to Rome in one evening, but we can most certainly do that if we adopt a whole society approach where the community, our social service agencies, and government comes together. I think we have a fair chance at success on this program. Thank you.
I see quite a few hands, so I'm going to ask members, please ask your questions succinctly and for the replies to also be short. All right, Mr. Gerald Giam.
Thank you, Madam. I have some questions on the adult disability care. Is the staff-client ratio of adult disability care facilities lower than that of the teacher-student ratio at SPED schools? And if so, why is there this disparity between the two? Because this is what causes the cliff effect for those who are graduating from SPED schools. And lastly, does MSF have any plans to close this gap, given that most SPED school graduates will need to attend post-18 disability care facilities? Thank you.
Palsec, Eric Chua.
I thank the member for his clarification. So on the first question of whether the staff ratio for the adult disability care facilities are on par with that of SPED schools, I don't have the numbers for the staff ratios for SPED schools on my hands at the moment, so I can't give a fair comparison across these two types of facilities. On your second point about closing the gaps, I do think that what we are doing is journeying with our persons with disabilities. And as I mentioned earlier, what we have done is to, over time, where necessary, increase funding. So for instance, I mentioned we increased funding for our day activity centers by some 20% or $3 million last year. And we have also increased funding for our adult disability homes by about 25% most recently as well. So our intention is really to make sure that we cater for the right amount as well as the right type of services that our persons with disabilities need within the community. And I think in terms of closing the gaps, that's definitely what we hope to do. And that's why since the iteration of the three enabling master plans since 2007, we have been keeping at it. We have been working on the fourth edition, as you know now, the results and the findings of which will be made known in the later part of this year. And I hope that you can look out for the announcements that we will make under this EMP 2030.
Ms. Denise Phua.
I really appreciate Pausek Erich's sincerity in working with us on the ground. And I also appreciate Mr. Gerald Giam's concern for the persons with disabilities. I just want to, supplementary question is this: would MSF consider convening a very specific, either you call it AFA or action group, that will look into the overall holistic needs of this community? Because to ask for, say, free transport or free schools, which actually MOE is, I computed, about 260 million a year, and there are some more cohorts coming, and there's a lot of adults who don't have services now, so the amount is going to be a lot bigger. So I think rather than asking for individual, I do think we need a holistic strategic study of the entire needs and then prioritize them, cluster them, see, size it up, see what is needed, and then look at how much can be supported by government grants, how much can be supported by those who can afford a bit more, and those who are in the community, the Temasek Foundation, who's been really, or Temasek Trust for that matter, even very helpful, and other foundations. So look at it holistically, convene a group that will look at it as a whole, size it, compute how much is required, and then see how we can actually operationalize the whole thing for sustainability and to meet the needs which are prioritized. Thank you very much.
Pausek Eric Chua.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I likewise want to thank Ms. Denise Phua for her passion in this area of work, which I think is really infectious whenever she's on the EMP meetings, and she brings with her great ideas as well. I want to keep this short. We won't shun away from the responsibilities on this, and that is why the Disability Office, SPSG and MSF is there, and that's why we'll continually look at these issues in totality and not just look at them from our own vantage point, but also look at them together with our partners in the community, the social service agencies, which is why, in today's EMP 2030 Steering Committee, we have a whole range of representations from both the people, private, and public sectors. I'm co-chairing that with Xiao Qi, Vice Chair of SBF, and I think that's a good example of how we hope to really make a difference in this disability space for good and in a sustained fashion. And you would know that, in this latest EMP, one of the bold moves that we're making, and I'm letting the cat out of the bag a little bit here, is to really fix some tangible goals for ourselves as to where we want to get to in the next few years leading up to 2030, where the end point of the Enabling Master Plan is. It is an end point, but it is, to me, just a checkpoint. Because what happens after 2030? It is the fourth, but definitely not the last master plan that we will have. We will have to keep working at these issues because some of these things that we want to change in society pertain to mindsets, pertain to culture, pertain to how we maybe even react to persons with disabilities in our midst. So I think there's a lot of work for us to do together, and I think I want to give members the assurance that we will be keeping at this for the long haul.
I like the passion in the room, but I please remind everyone, be succinct. Ms. Carrie Tan.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'll try to keep it short. I appreciate the Ministry's efforts to increase the digitalization efforts to make financial assistance more accessible. But given that many of the vulnerable communities are very low on their digital literacy, where they literally may not even know how to use Gmails on their phones, let alone to navigate government portals, I would like to know what is the Ministry's efforts in trying to bridge this digital literacy gap. And if the befrienders from the Comlink are meant to also support them on this front, then what are the ways that the Ministry might be looking at empowering befrienders and giving them the necessary access and safeguards around PDPA to support Comcare beneficiaries for their online applications? Secondly, given that the process of climbing out of poverty tends to be a long one, and it's not a matter of bouncing back, will the Ministry consider extending automatic transfers, or rather automatic extension of Comcare to short-term financial assistance recipients, given that right now it presents a disincentive to some of them attaining jobs with the uncertainty and prospect that they may lose financial assistance upon getting a job. So wouldn't that be a way to reduce the administrative load of the Ministry, at the same time helping to reduce the bandwidth tax of applicants? Thank you.
Mr. Desmond Lee.
Let me address the member's first question. The Support GoWare portal provides a digital enabler to help families to navigate support schemes and to be able to make the applications digitally. But we are mindful that many of our clients, including seniors, are more comfortable face-to-face, maybe on the phone, and befrienders will be a big plus. And so all that remains, in fact, that remains core, because in this line of work, in social service delivery, it's high touch, high feel. It's really emotional connection. But the digital platform adds another layer of support. Even in the real world space, I've described earlier streamlined action protocols, one client view, and Case Connect working in the back end to enable organizations to work around the client's needs and their families, even as the client approaches the SSO physically. And for clients who approach the SSO way before COVID or just before COVID, we'd already put in place video conferencing capacities to enable a client, say, from the SSO to communicate not just with the SSO officer physically, but virtually be able to link up with the HDB officer and, of course, with other agencies as well. So that remains an important way to support those who may not be so digitally inclined to seek help that way.
Mr. Masagos.
I just want to assure Ms. Carey that we do not want a cliff effect and disincentivize someone from graduating. We are not there to kick people out of Comcare or get them out of Comcare because we just don't want to give them support. We want to enable them, and as mentioned in my speech, if Ms. Tan has heard carefully, the SSOs are given discretion to continue support even after the person has found, for example, a job, a better paying job, and not suffer this cliff effect that we may have inevitably through our policy did in the past. This is not how we are going to go forward. Thank you.
Mr. Don Wee.
you, Madam Chair. I have 3 questions. Ms. Masagos mentioned that through Comlink, there'll be a proactive approach to appear at deserving residents' doorsteps. So I guess the low-hanging fruits at this moment will be the existing clients in the SSO systems, as well as there are also likely to be referrals from the family service centres or ComCare recipients. So my question is, can the potential pool of clients be expanded to beneficiaries of the MOE FAS schemes, the Medifund, as well as the various self-help groups like SINDAR, Mendaki, or CDAC? So by doing so, their application process must have a housing type and identifier in the application process, and it also means that system requirements will be required. Second question, along the same vein, relating to the app which allows clients to apply for various schemes. So I guess this is like the MSO One Service app equivalent for the less privileged Singaporeans. So over time, I hope the app can also allow these clients to apply for schemes offered by the self-help groups and the ComChair's accredited VWOs. Third question. So I also welcome the various improvements like one client view, the single means testing approach, as well as the telecounseling, which expedite the application turnaround time. So to improve the handshake process further, can we also explore co-locating SSO as well as the family service centres or SSAs in future? Because the newer rental precincts do not come with spacious void decks these days. And lastly, I will also thank the...
That's, Mr. Don, you've asked quite a lot of questions. I want to leave time for others. Mr. Eric Chua.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I also want to thank the member for his 3 clarifications. First, on expanding beyond the existing pool that we have identified to include those from self-help groups, schools, FAS, and whatnot. I'm mindful that we already have 14,000 families identified for this year and the next. We do want to focus on them. I would say that let's focus on these 14,000 families because a bespoke and customized approach has to be had for each of these families. So I don't think it is something that we want to take lightly. And once we are on a steady state with the existing 14,000 families, we will want to move on to as many other families that we can assist as possible. So that's for first question. Second question, the answer is we will take a look at that and we'll gradually, progressively evolve what we can provide in the technology and in the app, right? And the third question relates to 1CV and the co-location. Co-location of the different institutions, SSO, FSC, and all that. I think we have piloted that at Kreta Ayer and Bukit Merah, and we have co-located the SSO and FST. We have also co-located SSO and the AIC in Bedok, and also in the Tampines hub. So I think these are some examples. So I think as we evolve the delivery of social services, we can look at some of how we can actually co-locate some of our services as well. Thank you.
Ms. Joan Pereira, please keep it short so that I can let the other 2 clarifications as well go.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I have 2 clarifications on the topic of preschool accessibility. I'm very glad that Sengkang and Punggol will have more preschool places. Dawson, which I serve, also has many young families, so I hope and look forward to more preschool centres there. Second clarification, can the ministry consider my proposal to have ACTA reach out to families who have been on the waiting list for about 3 to 6 months? I hope the ministry can reach out to them, understand their needs, and help them register in a nearby centre with a vacancy, because I know most parents and grandparents will want to put their charges at a centre near their homes. Thank you.
Ms. MOS Sun Xueling.
I thank the member for her clarification. With the injection of new BTOs in the Dawson area, ACTA has planned new centres as well as extension of existing centres to increase preschool places to address the increase in demand. I also want to make a general point for other new towns or some of the older estates whereby there are new insertions of BTOs, that ACTA will work closely with agencies to quickly expand places through expansion of existing centres, but bearing in mind that there are sometimes manpower constraints, and they will also look into the development of new centres in additional sites, which will hopefully provide convenience to young families who have moved into these new BTOs. On her second question, currently parents may register their interest in the preschool via the Preschool Search Portal, which is an online self-help portal. And on this portal, parents can actually search by proximity, understand more about which are the centres that are available, what is the waitlist situation like. And every 3 months, the portal will inform the parents about the latest situation around the preschool places, and if the member is aware of specific instances whereby the parent is still unable to locate a preschool which is suitable for the family and the child, to please highlight the situation to myself, to ACTA, and we will follow up closely to find a preschool which hopefully the parents can accept. Sometimes parents can have their specific requirements around specific preschools. They may at some times want a specific preschool within a specific walking distance from home, and we will try very much to accommodate. So on a national level, in terms of preschool capacity, we have enough, but we recognize that in localized areas, there may be areas with higher demand, and where that happens, ACTA will work closely with the parents and the advisor there to help those young families living in those areas. Thank you.
Mr. Leon Pereira.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just 3 clarifications for Minister Masagos. I'll try and keep it short. Firstly, would the ministry consider the proposal contained in my budget speech to set a poverty line and measure the number of families, and particularly the number of children, who fall below this line every year, so that we can measure how we are making an impact on the issue of poverty and transitioning people out of poverty. And I know that some other countries do publish this data. Secondly, on the quantum of financial assistance, how often is this reviewed? When will the next review be? And do these reviews take into consideration new research, such as the study by Professor Teo Yo-Yen and Ng Kok Ho that I referred to? And lastly, a narrow clarification, the Minister referred to our intergenerational social mobility being better than North America and Europe, if I heard him correctly. Could he reference what is the study that demonstrates that? Because I'm not aware of that. Thank you.
Try to answer that in 3 minutes. Firstly, the data that talks about social mobility. This came from a study. Source is Sherry et al., 2014, US, UK, Denmark, and our own estimate updated by the authors of using administrative data. The US is about 7.5% of share of individuals who reach the top income quintile among those born to the bottom quintile. 7.5%. That's North America. For UK, it's about 9%. Europe, 11%. In Singapore, it's maintained about 14%, especially for those that we have estimated for the 1985-1989 cohorts. This is published in, as I mentioned, by Cherry et al., US, UK, Denmark, Canada. Authors. The authors are from these countries. For the other issue on the publication by the academicians, particularly around what they call minimum income standards. This was responded by MOF in October, giving its views about this minimum income standards, which was actually a study started in United Kingdom in 2006. So it's a relatively new approach in determining what are the benchmark standards to look at in alleviating poverty. And for this particular standard, the idea is to determine what incomes different household types require to reach a socially acceptable living standard. A socially acceptable living standard. It is nothing to do with determining what a low-income families should get. As such, even the Singapore study reflects the processes and outcomes expected from the study by the UK Foundation, and don't necessarily reflect what is necessary for the needs of the low-income households. For example, the call for $1,600 monthly income for a single or partnered household include the private enrichment classes, jewelry, perfume, and therefore in no way reflects what should be at least the basic necessity that we should meet for needy income households. But nonetheless, I would respect that this is an approach, a step at a particular academic approach. And like the UK exercise, it should be seen as a reflection of what society aspires everyone to have for themselves, for them, like what they want to have at least for themselves. Nonetheless, there are many other academic approaches to social spending, and these include those around measuring outcomes on social mobility, like the publication I mentioned just now, as well as issues around social inclusion. In Singapore, for example, we make sure social inclusion is something we work very hard on. Hawker centers, for example, is a very good example where the rich and poor dine together under a community hall, do not feel rich, do not feel poor. In the same way, too, community clubs, even our housing estates are designed for that. There are other studies which talk about how it should be done. For example, raising average incomes, building pathways for continuous improvement, and these two studies that I mentioned by our
Minister,
own
if you
academic,
can wrap up, please.
Yes. Put emphasis on personal responsibility, role of family, and not just government intervention. So I hope that we do not get fixated by a publication as popular as they are, but look at the broad literature and the outcomes that we have achieved so far. Thank you.
Mr. Seah Kian Peng, if you can withdraw your amendment, please.
Chairman, I first like to thank Ministers Masagos, Zulkifli, Minister Desmond Lee, MOS Xueling, and PALSEC Eric Chua for their responses to our cards and also their subsequent responses to our clarifications. Renewing and strengthening our social compact to build a fair and just Singapore requires the work and support of all of us. Certainly for those in the social sector, I think they are doing a lot of heavy lifting on this front. So on behalf of all of us inside and outside of this House, I want to express a sincere appreciation to all of them. On that note, I beg leave to withdraw my amendment.
Is the honourable member given leave to withdraw the amendment? I think leave of the majority is given. The amendment is withdrawn. The question is that a sum of $3,773,507,000 for head I stand part of the main estimates. As many as of that opinion say aye. To the contrary, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is that a sum of $86,845,700 for head I stand part of the development estimates. As many as of that opinion say aye. To the contrary, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.